everyone, and welcome to the first of our P23 webinar series. I'm Sue Taylor Foley, and I'm the Acting Executive Director of Education, Innovation, Programs and Services, and this is Kimberly Jackson. And Kim is the coordinator of the implementation of the Power Teacher Gradebook, and she is also a member of the P23 Curriculum Steering Committee at the department, and a very active member in all of the work that was done in streamlining the P23 curriculum. And I'll be the moderator for today, and Kim will be your session leader. I want to orient you before we begin to the platform a little bit so that you will be able to use some of the tools that are associated with our platform today. And the first one we're going to take a look at is right underneath the picture of me as the active leader. Right now you will see that there are under personal options 4 tools that are there. One of them is a hand tool, and right beside that you'll see a hand that's up, and right beside that there's a little down arrow. Would you please click on the raise hand if you are participating in this webinar today with at least one other person? Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. That helps to give us a little bit of context of how people are watching and viewing today. And certainly we know that many groups like to be able to participate in these sessions together, and we always certainly recommend that if that works for you, that you certainly invite some friends to join in as well. The other thing I want to orient you to is right underneath the names of the participants, you will notice that there is a chat box. At the very bottom, there is a section that says Write To. And if you put a message in that Write To section, and then you press Enter, that goes in for everyone to see. If you have a question during today's webinar, would you please place it in that chat box, and it will be answered as it naturally occurs in the webinar or at the end of the session today. So at any time, if you've got something that you want to add there, please feel free to put that in. I also wanted to let you know that today's session is being taped and will be edited and hosted on our digital video library site so that you will be able to access that at a later time. It will also be cross-referenced on our Moodle site. And so on the P23 Moodle, Renew, Refocus, and Rebuild, you will find that this will be posted there as soon as we're able to get that edited and posted. So as I mentioned today, Kim will be leading our session. And our session is on the action plan, of course. And this is the first one in our P23 series. So we're really looking forward to getting started on this. And we do hope that you will ask questions as we move through, and we'll begin now by turning things over to Kim. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon I'm going to talk a bit about the streamlined curriculum and the process that we went through. As you probably are well aware, the action plan was developed after the large education review was held, and 3,800 teachers responded out of those 19,000 folks across Nova Scotia. So the plan is divided into pillars, and so today we're going to focus on innovative curriculum and streamlined curriculum, which is the pillar that we've been focusing on a lot in the last 12 weeks, I think it is, or 13 weeks. Want me to do that? So we have changed the curriculum model, but I will say right off the bat that our task was not to develop new curriculum. So the task was to take a look at existing curriculum and do some work around that. So in the past, we've had curriculum frameworks. They were formed with APAF, the Atlantic Provinces Education Ministers worked on that. And so we've moved away from that framework that had EAGLES, general curriculum outcomes, GCOs, that had key stage outcomes, and then down to the SCOs. So that has changed. We have maintained strands, specifically in English language arts and in mathematics. If you've been looking at the site and looking at the documents, you'll note that those are not represented there, and those will be updated probably by tomorrow would be the plan. So what we talk about now with this new curriculum model is learning outcomes and indicators. And so the learning outcomes and indicators have been what we've been focusing on the most in the last number of weeks. The key thing to know about the learning outcomes is we really wanted to make them student-centered, and the same with the indicators. And the indicators really, if you take an I can statement, so if you think about what a student should be able to do, we tried to model them and develop them so that you could say, I can read a paragraph at level. That's not a good example, so let's forget that one actually. We did try to make them into I can statements, or that they could be developed into I can statements. So student-centered, teacher-designed is the second thing, and the minister spoke very strongly about this. She wanted to hear the voices of teachers. And one of the key things that came back through that education review was the concern from a number of teachers, and I will be honest, even parents, about the number of outcomes that were in our programs. So student-centered, teacher-designed, essential learning outcomes, and more time for mathematics and literacy. Essential learning outcomes would be the umbrella that when the curriculum consultants first looked at the outcomes in their subject areas, that was one of the first tasks, was to look at what are the essential learning outcomes, and then to develop the so that's been sort of the main focus of the work that we've done to date. So performance indicators, alignment of outcomes. One of the things as well that we heard in the education review, but also that many of us who've worked with teachers across this province in the last number of years has been with folks who have combined grades and really needed that alignment of outcomes across grades. So we've worked very hard to do that, and the documents that are being developed always have the lens of that teacher who might be teaching combined grades. And as our population continues to decline, we know that the chances of having combined grades certainly increases. The other aspect that we were to focus on was around the end in mind, the integrated report card. And so we've been working on that as well as we have been working along with the curriculum. So not rewriting curriculum, but really reducing the curriculum has been the focus. So the mandate, when we put together the primary to 3 team, it was a group of teachers that were recommended from their boards, and one per board came in to work with us for a number of weeks, and that initial group was the design and development team, and they're really the team that has led this process through the last number of weeks. So their challenge was to reduce the number of outcomes, to develop indicators for the outcomes, to align them primary to 3, and to align the competencies to the outcomes and indicators. And that's another change. If I take you back to talking about the EAGLES, the essential graduation learnings, what we're now talking about are the essential graduation competencies. And so across Atlantic Canada and in many other jurisdictions in Canada and around the world, people in education are moving to competencies that describe what students need to be able to do. So we built that in as well. I'm just going to flip to a video that I'd like you to watch. I want you to hear the teacher voices of the work that we've been doing for the last 12 to 13 weeks.
You all will have received a web address. If you could click on the link for that web address, you will be taken to the video. The video is approximately 4 minutes long. And when you return, would you please put in the chat box any impressions you have from watching the video? We'll return as a group in about 4.5 minutes. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you return, if you would put a comment about the video in the chat box, and you can do it in a sentence or you can do it in one word, whichever you prefer.
We're not sure that the chat box is accessible to everyone as far as viewing what other participants have put in, but certainly people have mentioned that they're excited about having more time, that they appreciate teachers being involved in the process. And if you've had a problem with getting that video to load for you, then we invite you to complete watching that afterwards. It does talk about the process that was used to develop the streamlined innovative curriculum, and the teachers who were involved in the development and design team are featured in this particular one. But we also did have teachers who are part of a review process who really added a great voice as well to that process. So we can tell that from the comments that we're seeing that people are excited about that. So Kim's going to get started on things. And if the video didn't watch for you, we invite you to watch that at the end.
It is exciting. It has been an exciting process to be part of. And we certainly appreciated the voices of teachers. And even when the minister was at the P2 launch last week, she talked about the voices of teachers and wanting that to continue. So what we'll talk about is going to talk about how that can happen. So here's a chart that just gives you a really quick overview of what's happened. So I'll use grade primary as the example. So the number of former outcomes, and when we did this, we were counting up the number of SCOs. So there were 33 in English Language Arts in primary, and we've reduced that down to 9. And if you look at the bottom, you sort of see the total number of outcomes across the scope of what the regular classroom teacher would be teaching. There was 138 for primary, and we've reduced that down to 42. So that part is really exciting to see that actual reduction, but I have to tell you that was not an easy process, because for things to be let go of, you had to think it through as to what that looked like in primary, in 1 and 2, and so on. So when we added this all up, we did celebrate, but at the same time realized the amount of discussion that took place for days, and the revisions and that were made and then sent back out and looked at, and I feel that we've done in this span of time a very thorough process and a thorough look at this, but we are calling these now living documents. And so what I mean by a living document is a little different than what you've probably experienced in your career in education. We've produced historically guides of various lengths with all kinds of really rich information inside them. We did not redevelop curriculum. I said that to you before. So what we're doing is looking at the outcomes and the indicators, producing them in charts, which you can see on the P2 Moodle site. We've got things organized by curriculums and by grades, so you can go in and take a look at as few things as you want or as many things as you want. And what we'll be doing is linking resources that are already out there to those outcomes and indicators, because we know that people have those things at their fingertips, and we'll also be putting them online. So if you think of English Language Arts produced a new P3 guide, the draft I think is 2012. We really use that with this work for English Language Arts because it was the most current and reflected many of the quality practices that we expect in our classroom. So what we'll do is chunk up that guide for you online so that you can go to certain places. There's also a forum on that website where you can ask questions, and so go in and take a look at that because it does provide really good information. So one of the key things in this has been the word alignment. So aligning not just across the grades, but even within a grade, and trying to look at how social studies, science, visual arts, and health support the things that we know are the two major focus for us in education right now at P3, which is language arts and mathematics. So we had an opportunity here to really go in and look at aligning not just instruction and assessment, but evaluation and reporting as well. So in instruction, and I'm just put a couple of examples here. As we look at developing the unit plans and the yearly plans, we want to ensure that the instructional side of things is supported. So for instance, we expect workshop model in language arts, and people do that for reading and people do that for writing. Those would be embedded in as well. I just chose very quickly this afternoon mental math and mathematics. That's supposed to take place every day. We would build that into the unit plans. The unit plans are what we have now. We called them very drafty because they really were more of a rush job towards the end. It took us longer to reduce the number of outcomes and develop clear indicators than we had anticipated. But that being said, I do believe that what you have or will have, if you haven't seen it in front of you, are very clear indicators of what a student should know, show, and do by the end of the year within that subject area. And for language arts, our guide is organized into stages. We actually went in and divided up the early stage to reflect grade 1 and grade 2. So I think lots of exciting things, a huge opportunity to go deeper with our students. There's no doubt about that. From the assessment side of thing, and when I talk about it, I'm talking about classroom assessment, we have another real opportunity. One of the things that is mentioned in the action plan is a commitment to assessment for learning. And so we're going to build that in as well as summative. So we can show how you do ongoing classroom assessment, what some of those tools might be. We'll embed them in the unit plans and yearly plans, and they will help illuminate the indicators and how we look at how students are demonstrating achievement of the outcomes. The last piece that we can't forget about, because it is our end in mind, is evaluation and reporting. And so we're really looking at building in not just the yearly plan for the curriculum side of things, but also how you assess and evaluate that and embed that in the unit and yearly plans. We're aligning the reporting templates and coming soon to a webinar near you. I think it's June the 10th, will be a focus on actually the changes with report cards. We're really looking at ensuring that students have the opportunity to go deeper with their learning by focusing on less things and on some real essential things that our students need to have control of by the end of each grade, but by the end of grade 3 is really, really important. And we know in English language, or in language arts and in mathematics, that there are some key things that have been identified and we need the time to go through, to take students through an instructional cycle, if you will, that allows them multiple opportunities to demonstrate their learning and their achievement. So what is integrated reporting? Because that is referred to in the documentation. It refers to an alignment of that curriculum, instruction, and assessment. There is a focus on language arts and mathematics. There's no two ways about that. There is not separate reporting of the other subjects on the P3 report card. So health, ICT, science, social studies, and visual arts are not reported on separately. But our comments should still focus on strengths, areas for improvement, and ways to help at home school. And we'll be looking at a more developmental reporting of the learner profile. And you will see some of that information coming out to you on June the 10th. Thanks. So what's next? Well, there's going to be continuing work over the summer to develop those yearly plans and units and embed that curriculum, instruction, assessment, and evaluation. There is an expression of interest on the P3 site. If you're a teacher who thinks that you would love to take part in some of that development, then you can fill out that form and that will come to us. I think we're anticipating that work will happen in July and potentially in August. We're going to do a double check on the indicators. There's no two ways about that. We have to go a little deeper, make sure that we covered everything. We've found a couple of things that are more typos than anything else. Right now, French Immersion P3 are meeting and going through a similar process to align their curriculum with ours. We're looking at that challenge of the 3-4 combined grade because P3 is new curriculum and grade 4 is still operating in the old. So just like we did with mathematics, we're going to look at how we can support those teachers. We are developing and linking resources, assessment tools, and that kind of work is going to continue. There's going to be more detailed information on reporting and the P3 report card by June the 10th for that webinar. I do a sneak peek, but I always like to whet people's appetite. Right now as well, we have expressions of interest out for P3 physical education and P3 music. They'd be doing the same type of thing in developing indicators. So that is a real quick overview, and I'm going to sit back and Sue can look and see if there's any questions that people might have that we can take.
So there was one question that came up a bit earlier, and that was, when are we getting the documents? Well, actually, those documents are all available to you now on the P3 Moodle, and that Moodle is Renew, Refocus, Rebuild, an Innovative Curriculum P3. In addition, the teacher who attended the launch from your school in Halifax last week will be receiving an email by the end of the week that has copies of all the outcomes P3 and some additional information too to help support your school. We are not printing paper documents at this stage, and there still is lots of work to be done, as you can hear. Certainly a lot of work has happened. But this is a living curriculum. There will be additions to it. There will be additional supports, and we will be linking resources as well. So resources that have gone out in the past are still resources that are very appropriate because the curriculum itself hasn't changed. The curriculum has been streamlined, and some innovative things have been embedded within the curriculum for cultural competencies, with technology, with assessment as well. And so many of the resources that we have are fabulous resources to continue to use, and we're going to be working to link those resources. That's what really will be happening in some of the summer work with the teams that we've asked for expressions of interest for. And those are on the Moodle site as well. And those close on June the 10th. So if you're at all interested in expressing interest in doing any of that additional work, please let us know through your expression of interest. As well, of course, I remind you that EduFest this summer will be a strictly P2-3 event and will be held in 2 locations this year, one in Halifax and one at St. X. And so that gives us 2 locations that will be closer to some people. And then hopefully at another point in time, we'll have events in other parts of the province as well. So if there's any additional questions, can you please indicate that in the question box? And we'll just give people just a minute here to ask anything else that they may have. I want to remind you that our next webinar is on indicators, what students can know, show or do, and how you can use the indicators in classroom assessment. And that's on June the 9th. And Kim has already pitched, of course, the one for June the 10th, which is on report cards. And all of those are on the P2-3 Moodle as well. So someone indicated that their school did not have someone attend. Would you please note what school that was for us, and we'll make sure that someone at your board level has that information so that we'll be sure that things get through to your school. So one of the questions is, will yearly and unit plans be developed by the department? And the answer is no. We won't be developing them. We'll be developing them in collaboration with teachers. We really want to have the voices of teachers participate in that, and that's part of the expression of summer interest work. And so while there are some samples of yearly plans and some samples of integrated units already on the P2-3 Moodle, we would like to have quite a few more to be able to assist people in understanding what that looks like, what that doesn't look like, and giving people a wide array of choices as well. Certainly one yearly plan doesn't seem to fit everybody's needs, as we noted when we were working actually with the development and design team. What I found interesting one day when I happened to have the opportunity to walk around was that someone had an inspiration chart that showed what they were doing. Someone else had a highlighted color-coded document that went weekly and monthly. Another one had something that spanned a full year in a calendar format. So people did things in all different ways.
And the interesting part too, to add to what Sue's just talking about, is on the Moodle and the question forum, somebody asked if they could get a yearly plan for another grade in this format. And that's the beauty of this. There is no one way. And what we would like to do is to continue to get that feedback. The good thing about a living document is we'll gather feedback and then take a look at that to inform for the next year. So when teachers go in and open up their grade book, they will see, as of September, the new outcomes that will be in there. So there's going to be all kinds of opportunities for us to look at the grade book and see how that can support our work as well.
So the Moodle site can be accessed by going to the following URL, and I will put it here for everyone in the chat box. And this is the same site that most of you are using right now for mathematics. And I certainly know that the vast majority of teachers in the province are using the mathematics Moodle sites, which is great. So when you go to that site, you can actually self-enroll in the course, and you're able to use the credentials that you already have and log into that. There is a document that can assist with that as well. And for the individual who mentioned that her school doesn't have that information, I will be sure that that information gets sent to your school. For everyone else, the teacher leader who was at your school does have specific steps and they'll be able to share that with you if that's a site that you're not familiar with. But you can actually go in, you don't need a code on this particular Moodle. So once you've logged in using your account that you have used in the past for the mathematics, you simply look for the Renew, Refocus, Rebuild, and Innovative Curriculum PETA-3, and you can click on that and enroll yourself into that particular course. The French immersion documents, they're working on those now, and I don't have the actual date at this point because they've just started their work recently on that. There are already some documents that have been translated that are on the Moodle site now. I think there's one. Is there not, Kim?
Sure
Kim is not sure. We're going to look into that. But I know that there was one that was translated where the outcomes were identical and where the indicators were appropriate for the language level that students would have obtained at that grade level. And the others, they're reviewing the indicators and working, of course, on the French language arts piece right now. And so I know that with their work, they're really hoping to get that done as soon as possible because they know that people are looking for that information. So thank you all very much for attending today. And I see that we have one last question that we'll try to answer before we sign off today. And the question is, does it matter what subject area outcomes are paired with ELA and math? Some science outcomes would work best in math while others in ELA. And that is very true. Definitely, there are some outcomes that would work better in each. Our goal is to provide a few sample units that will help assist teachers in making those determinations. But we also know sometimes that with the creativity of teachers and the innovation of teachers that ones that we may not have necessarily anticipated would work well together may actually work well together in a different setting. And so an example that came up yesterday was, or last week I guess it was, if you happen to have a brook behind your school, you may actually be able to do different kinds of activities than somebody who has a shopping mall behind their school. And so that may lend itself to actually doing some real-world application of some outcomes that one might not have thought of previously, working well in mathematics or science. The layout of Power Teacher Gradebook going forward will really support that as well, in that all of the outcomes in all the areas that Kimberly had mentioned will be accessible to teachers under mathematics and language arts, and that will be choices that teachers will be able to make. So additional information will be coming on that, and lots of work to still do, but certainly lots of work that has been done, and certainly in collaboration with the strong voices of teachers and the department working together. We certainly appreciate having all of that. So thank you all very much for attending today, and we hope that you will attend some of our next webinars. This webinar, as I mentioned, will be edited and placed a link on the PETA-3 Moodle so that you'll be able to access this and share this with others or review any of the comments that have been made. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.